I'm Dan Drake. This is Visitor Network TV, and with us today, and welcome back, David Goodman.
How you doing?
How are you? Author of Goodman's Gam and the Enquirer and Mirror, and a great observer of the local scene. Well, there are a lot of things we could talk about, but let's talk about your views of the latest iteration. We talked about this a little bit the last time you were on. Your views of the latest iteration of the Sconset Beach project and the issues related to Baxter Road and the utilities and the access and so forth. Where are you? Have you changed your mind, or are you still pretty much on the idea that they're? Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You tell me.
Well, I think they're just, they want what they want, and they don't really care how they get there. And I said this in my column last week that that the problem that I have is that people out there on Baxter Road could easily give the town the right of way to run their utilities and whatever, and that would be a nice thing to do, and also it would help them because they're in danger of losing those things. Instead, their attitude is, well, yeah, we could do that, but we don't want to do it. We're going to make you spend the money to get this. And by the way, in return, we also want you to help finance this accretion of rocks they're going to put out there. Initially, they're going to pay for it, but what they're not talking about is this could go on ad infinitum. I mean, it could be forever, millions of dollars a year to fill the sand in that they have to keep filling in on the edges of where the rocks are. So, it sounds nice, it's not going to cost you anything immediately. It's kind of like buying a cell phone, They give you the cell phone because they want you to use the minutes, That's the point. They're not giving you the cell phone because it's just nice people. They're doing it because it profits them.
I guess the issue from my perspective, because I think, the science is pretty clear that if you do something like this, in my view, the science is pretty clear, and I've seen this demonstrated in places like the Outer Banks, that if you do something in one place, it's going to have an effect someplace else. And whether, I know that's certainly Rick Atherton's position, and a lot of other people's who are opposed to the project. Those who are in favor of the project seem to be focused more on the potential cost to the town of not doing something in the short term. That's not a long term cost. That's somebody just said it was maybe in the range of $10 to $20 million, assuming that the largesse of the property owners doesn't well up all of a sudden. That's not insignificant. So what's the trade-off there?
Well, the point that I made is that it will go on forever if they do it. And the fact is that it may cause incredible damage down the coast on either side of this project. It may, for all we know, the people around Quidnet may have, huge erosion problems. Not to mention the fact that the eroding of that cliff helps build the beaches around there. That will end. Also, Codfish Park. You may lose Codfish Park in the process. I don't know what the percentage of people in Sconset are that favor this project, but I'll bet it's not even 50%. And then you've got the rest of the island, which is the other 95% of people on this island. They're mostly not for this thing. So, if nothing else, the majority rules, and we'll see at town meeting. We have an article that will sort of help negate what these people are trying to do, and I hope it passes. And it's unfortunate that last year, they sort of got a redress, I should say, on an article that we had in place because Steve McCluskey, who is a guy I like a lot, but I disagree when he went in there and sort of did the poor us. Not that he lives there, but these are people's houses, and they are people's houses, and they built in a place, or they bought a place where it could not. It won't necessarily be there next year or next week or 10 years from now. And you know, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it
Excuse me,
goes.
I'm looking up something because it leads to my next question, which is the article about town meeting, and I have something here about that. So if bear with me, but let's talk a little bit
I was gonna
while
say,
I'm looking. Why
one
don't
thing
you?
I was going to say while we're into that process is the fact that now they're talking about doing something to stay off the storms for the winter, and I wonder what that's going to be, and whether that could do more damage as well. Another thing that that doesn't get spoken about much, but it is true. A lot of the erosion there is from the springs that are in the top of the bluff there. So,
not to mention people's sprinkler systems.
That's true, but I was going to say, the fact is that the sprinkler systems could be solved if they just shut them off. You can't shut the springs off, and so it's not something that will just end if they do X, Y, Z, because you still got the springs coming through there. I mean, I talked to one guy who's a heavy equipment guy who was approached about doing some of the work there, and he's turned the work down. He said, because whatever I do, it's not going to work because of the springs. So.
All right, Article 13. That's the one you're talking about, I assume.
Probably.
Coastal properties owned by town, management of?
Probably is, yes.
I don't have the text of the article here, although I could...
It's Catherine Flanagan, I believe,
right.
is the...
I believe so. And
Stover. I'm sorry, I should got to give her husband credit there.
I'm going to have to look it up because this isn't clear, but it's a commentary on the amendment, and it talks about requiring town meeting approval for licensing or leasing of any town-owned coastal property to a non-governmental body for erosion control purposes. But it's supposed to deal with anything the town does as well. Is it not? That requires town meeting approval?
I'm not sure about that, but I will say this. I just think that the crux of the whole thing is town meeting approves these sort of things. I think that's what it's all about. I think if, I don't want the selectmen to approve, which they sort of did with that
MOU,
I'm sorry. With the people there, where they made a deal with them basically, and I think that's too big for just the selectmen to make that decision. I have a general mistrust of the selectmen, and it's not anyone in particular. It's just that a lot of the times I see them doing things, and I just go, "Whoa, what's the thinking here?" And unfortunately, because they do a lot of their negotiations, I should say, in executive session. For some things, I think that's fine. If they're negotiating pay raises for employees, obviously you can't make that public. But, I mean, at least until it happens. But something like this, where they're dealing with some citizens, and it involves all of us, I just think it's got to be totally out in the open.